Training Camp 2025 rolls on the West Coast as we welcome you to Oxnard, California, and another episode of Special Edition from the training camp facility for your Dallas Cowboys. Alongside Isaiah Stanback and Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Youmans. As you can see there, the fans excited this week. Lots to learn about this Cowboys team as they're now 3 weeks down into training camp, and a lot has happened since we were last on the air a week ago, including a lot of Micah Parsons talk as that contract dispute continues between Parsons and the front office. Nate, I'll start with you. We heard a lot from Micah Parsons, from the front office. What were your thoughts on how that whole situation unfolded throughout the week?
I hoped well for Micah Parsons. We work for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not going to get deep into that. It's above my pay grade. He's chronicled well what he thinks about this situation. Mr. Jones has come back and said what he had to say. I stay out of players' contracts. Isaiah, you may have more to say.
No, I mean this is negotiating. This is the way in which negotiations go down in 2025. You have ownership that is going to stand by the current contract that is in place, which states that Micah Parsons has another year left on his contract, and that they'll figure everything else out in their timing. And then you have the player who feel like they've kind of outperformed their current contract and they want an extension. They want it to be paid at the top of their position. So what do? You use social media, you use the media, you use the fans to your advantage. This is all chess pieces moving around. These guys both have a high regard and a high respect for each other. It will get taken care of, but in whose timing, that's what we have to wait and see.
And of course, it all really hit the light of day a little more so when Micah Parsons officially requested a trade with Stephen Jones and then releasing the statement that he did on X. Here are some of the top average per year earnings for edge rushers throughout NFL history. A lot of these are current contracts or new signings, such as TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, that both signed new deals this offseason. Micah Parsons hoping to be a part of this fold, really right around that $40 million per year mark. Here's what Jerry Jones had to say earlier in the week when talking about the situation with Micah Parsons that continues to unfold.
I think the world of Micah. He's an outstanding player. He can really help us, but he's got to fit in with what's in the best interest of the team, and that's what the negotiation's all about. We've got an agreement. Now, if we're going to adjust that agreement, then he's a must and I'm a must. Okay, not the organization, I'm a must in this case. And so I do these very significant ones. And so it's very important that if we're going to change the contract that we've got right now, which this would, then that I agree to what we've changed. That's why it was so good when we sat down together and spent a lot of time going back and forth and adjusting, and we had that exercise together. What y'all don't know is what I offered him. And it's a hell of a lot more than you think I did.
And as you can see, Micah Parsons with plenty of production through his first 4 seasons in the NFL, one of the all-time greats through his first 4 campaigns, top 5 all-time in sacks, and that's without missing, that's with missing a 4-game stretch in 2024. Nate, if he's not a part of this team, which hopefully that's not the case, he continues forward, what would be your thought about how they replace that production?
You can't, but you got Dante Fowler that you signed during the offseason, bring him in, and then we got Sam Williams coming off injury. We're going to ask a lot from him, and the young rookie, Donovan, number 41, Donovan. Thank you. We're asking for a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to Nate's point, you can't replace what Micah Parsons' void would be causing, but the reality is you have some guys that can go get after the quarterback. You have Dante Fowler Jr., who's coming off of his second best season of his career after going and having a 1-year stint with Dan Quinn in Washington. He had 10.5 sacks, so you have somebody who's playing really the best ball of their career. And then you have Sam Williams, who's hungry. He's really playing to prove that he's worth getting another contract because he hasn't been on the field much. And then Donovan Ezraku, he's inexperienced in the NFL, but he's a young gun who's getting mentored by Micah Parsons. Hopefully we get a chance to see both of those guys on the field collectively together, but if they don't, all these guys will be ready for the opportunity.
And there was a lot of opportunity for those guys to step up and take some extra reps this week, including a joint practice on Tuesday as Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams came to Oxnard. When we come back, we outline who looked good throughout those practices and what the Cowboys could learn from that joint matchup with the Rams.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. Reliant, official energy provider of the Dallas Cowboys. Blockchain.com. Invest like your icons with Blockchain.com. And by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. This segment is brought to you by your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
Couple big highlights from Tuesday's practice with the Rams in town as we welcome you back into Special Edition from Oxnard, California. I want to get right into it, gentlemen. Isaiah, Nate, you were both there in attendance as it was really the only opportunity to see the first-teamers versus other first-teamers throughout this early portion of the preseason. What were your thoughts on how they performed against the Rams?
My initial thoughts aren't that great, Kyle. It's something that you'll hear some of these coaches talk about whenever they refer to this joint practice, and it's a pad level. Both offensive line and the defensive line pad level are entirely too high. How does that play against you? O-line, you're going to get pushed back because the defensive linemen are getting underneath you, so you can't have leverage. You can't protect the pocket. You can't drive nobody off the ball in the run game. On the defensive side of the ball, you can't get a pass rush if you're playing up high. These offensive linemen will play patty cake on your chest all day long, and there was no pass rush. So those are the two of the things that really stood out for me that they have to get corrected.
I think it's the sharpness and the physicalness of what the Rams brought. And now once you see this as a young team, as a team that has a lot of different players coming in and out of your lineup, the sharpness, the technical soundness that they had as a defensive line and as an offensive line should bode well for our young guys.
That's a lot of things they can learn from it. We did see a couple of big-time plays on both sides of the football. Let's stick with the Cowboys positively. What play stood out to you as the best play of that practice Tuesday?
Well, somebody who considered themselves to have a cannon of an arm back when they played the quarterback position. I had past tense. I used the past tense. Joe Milton to Big Jalen Brooks. That was an absolute bomb. Big deep pass down the center of their field. About 75 yards in the air, effortlessly thrown by Milton. Whenever he has a pocket and he has time, these guys are getting open, winning their matchups, and he delivered a nice shot down the field for a big play.
I like the way Will Grill scrambled out to the right side and threw a nice one to Turpin, and Turpin just turned on his speed. One move and boom, he was in the end zone. So that was a nice play by Will Grill.
Yeah, those are a couple of guys fighting for that wide receiver 3 or 4 spot on the roster. Brooks reeling it in from Milton, and then, of course, Devontae Turpin's had a great camp so far. That was a big find for this Cowboys front office. We'll sit down with one of the members of that front office when we come back with more Special Edition. Stephen Jones sits down with Nick Eatman.
Was brought to you by your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by the NFL Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan.
Back on the West Coast with more Special Edition, one of my favorite parts of the week. Nick Eatman has a chance to catch up with Cowboys COO Stephen Jones.
Week 3 of training camp, and it's been a different camp, of course, with Brian Schottenheimer's first year. But obviously, there's been a lot of talk. I know you're probably tired of it with the Micah Parsons stuff. There, since we last talked to you, there's been a trade request on your end. Does that change anything? Has anything changed on your front?
You know, Nick, that's just the nature of negotiations. I think any player that's holding out for a contract right now, I think I've read around the league where they've all requested to be traded. So that's part of it. We have no intention of trading Micah. He's right here in camp, and we'll just keep working. I mean, this is how these things work.
I think if I were to ask you which positions you might be concerned about, you probably wouldn't reveal that. But are there?
Would.
Okay. Well, what are some of those? I was just seeing, is there some places where there's still questions to answer?
Yeah, I still think the corner position, only because you look at what's on injured reserve. We've got 3 corners over there. An NFI and 2 PUPs, that we're expecting to play for us this year. So certainly Kyer, we expect to play for us this year, but some other guys are getting opportunities. But, with them not ready to go yet, you certainly think about that in terms of improving there if we get the opportunity to do it. I think, a guy like a Booth and Pride are doing a good job out there, but I certainly think that's a place where we got our fingers crossed a little bit but between Diggs and Revel and Butler, that we get those guys back in the mix. And then, you never know what's going to be out there that we can get our hands on. And then, I think the big defensive tackle there with Mozzie and Jay are doing a really good job, but still you want to see it live, because that position in there in the trenches, you really don't get a great feel for it till you're really tackling to the ground and you're playing in a football game. But I do have a lot of confidence both those guys are going to step up for us.
Last one, and you mentioned Shoddy earlier, but I know I've asked you this before, but now we're into week 3, and is there just more things that you're seeing from him and his staff that just, it seemed like there's so much energy, but you're getting excited more and more just by getting to work with them?
Well, the biggest thing is there's no let up in the energy, which to me shows it's authentic. I mean, it's consistent day in and day out, which, when you're in the grind of a training camp, and here we are into week 3, you just don't see any lack of enthusiasm or energy, and it rubs off on the players, because this is kind of, if you will, the hump part of camp where you're getting through it. Of course, we got this week, and then we'll finish up through the end of next week, and I'm sure people are going to have their eyes on going back to Dallas and getting back to the Star, and that means the season's right around the corner. But the biggest thing is just his enthusiasm and how it's relentless and so authentic, and they never let up, and I think that's a huge plus for our team, our players, our coaching staff, and certainly hats off to Coach Schottenheimer for pulling that off.
Plenty of conversation about the defense with Cowboys COO Stephen Jones. Matt Eberflus has taken over this Cowboys defense. How are they looking out on the West Coast here in Oxnard?
This segment was brought to you by the NFL Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan. This segment is brought to you by Salvation Army, doing the most good.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Hey, will you hold that for me? I don't have pockets, Henry. What football coach does that? Dude, what'd you do, lose your chain?
Well, when?
Yesterday?
No, my crew.
I be on came out.
With the dying there?
But, I went to dinner. It just kept falling out. I was like, what? Felt wind on my gum.
I thought you hurt your finger because you were like this.
Different.
Hey, who is Junior in Mario Brothers? What little character? We need a little minion character for Junior. I'm pulling for the defense! I'm pulling for the defense! When it's a good day like that and you guys compete, I ain't got much to say. Malik Hooker, get us out of here, dog!
Plenty of learning lessons here for Matt Eberflus in this Cowboys defense as we welcome you back in to Training Camp 2025 and Special Edition with Isaiah Stanback and Nate Newton. I'm Kyle Youmans. A lot of the conversation has circled around that defensive unit. Based off of what you've seen out of practice so far, Nate, what are the strengths from the defense?
I think it's going to be the linebackers. I think it's going to be Matt Eberflus and his linebackers. Murray and all of those guys, I think they'll do a great job.
I like the linebackers as well, but I'm going to have to go to the linebackers in addition to the defensive end room. I think those guys are relatively deep now. Obviously, Micah Parsons out, so the guys, Sam Williams, Dante Fowler Jr., Donovan Ezeraku, all those guys, whenever you have that much talent, you're able to rotate those guys in, not only at the D in position, but you're able to insert them at the D tackle and start messing around with the offensive line's protections.
Yeah, that back and forth and the chess match from Matt Eberflus is going to be really interesting as time goes on. Let's hear what Brian Schottenheimer thinks about this defense and who's been standing out across the whole couple weeks of practices here in Oxnard.
Donovan Wilson, I mean, just the communication. I was watching the talk through earlier and wow, just terrific. Kyrie Elam, another interception yesterday, right? I mean, he's a guy that's done it. But Malik Hooker, incredible camp, showing up every day, making plays, making communication. Talked a little bit about Marist, Troy Pride. It's actually funny. I kind of messed with the guys. We were talking about something the other day, and I said, "Yeah, Cable's told me that some of you guys have been moving way too fast. You need to slow down." And all their ears kind of perked up. And I paused and I said, "On the field." And then we gave out speeding tickets to the guys that had the fastest time, but based on skill, mid, like Sam had the D-line, Geit had the O-line. It was, I think, Troy Pride had the fastest time, Deuce Vaughn. So, we had some fun with it.
Here are just a few of the names that Brian Schottenheimer has mentioned throughout his press conferences as defensive standouts. Of course, he's the offensive play caller. He has to deal with a lot of these guys when trying to call those plays on the offensive side of the football. I want to know what you guys have thought about defensive standouts so far. Isaiah, I'll start with you.
I like the Kyer Elam. Kyer Elam's done a good job. It's crazy because I played with his dad. That's wild to me. But I think he's had a great opportunity, obviously coming over in the trade, but he's had a chance to step into the role with so many guys injured at that position. You know, obviously Diggs is out. Deron Bland was out for the first part. Kalen Carson. So he's really been inserted in there, and he's shown up in a major way, making plays all throughout training camp.
I think Sam Williams, because I've been watching offensive line so much, that it's been Sam Williams. He's been making plays, but he's going to have to, out of need, especially if our other guy Parsons don't get back on time, he's going to have to be a player for us. He's been doing a good, consistent job.
Really, you could have that conversation about both those guys. Kyer Elam, with the injuries at corner, they've needed him to step up ever since trading for him from Buffalo through the early parts of this offseason. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up on Special Edition. We've got a game we're going to play. It's a one-word answer game. Plus, we'll give you a look at the schedule ahead as Training Camp 2025 shifts back to Frisco, Texas.
This segment was brought to you by Salvation Army, doing the most good. Closed captioning is brought to you by the Texas Lottery. Play the games of Texas with the Texas Lottery. Play today. And to watch more Dallas Cowboys content on your connected TV, download the Cowboys Now app on Amazon Fire, Roku, and Apple TV. Special Edition, presented by AT&T, was brought to you by your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. And by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
The boys are back. See your Dallas Cowboys up close at training camp August 19th and 20th at the Star in Frisco. Enjoy open practices, fan fun, and a whole lot more. Admission is free. Learn more at dallascowboys.com/training camp. And here's the remaining Cowboys training camp preseason schedule as they spend one more week out here in Oxnard. They will fly home to Dallas on Thursday in preparation for their preseason Week 2 matchup with the Baltimore Ravens at AT&T Stadium, 6 p.m. kickoff on CBS 11, and then those two practices at the Star in Frisco. We're wrapping up Special Edition here in Oxnard. Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Youmans. Let's play a little game here. This is just based off of training camp so far. I'm going to give you a topic. You give me one word and maybe a short synopsis of that one word after the fact. I'll start with you, Nate. How about fights at camp? What's the one word?
Yes. As long as you keep it physical and don't swing on a brother with a closed fist, I'm good.
It's normal. Fights at camp are normal. It happens every single camp. There's a lot of attention placed on it now, but happens all the time.
And what about the running back room and what you've seen from the Cowboys running back room so far? I'll start with you, Isaiah.
Balanced. I think they're running attack as balanced right now. Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, those guys are both downhill backs. You have Kavontae Turpin rolling in there and Jaden Blue. Those are your speed scat backs. I think it's a very balanced backfield.
I want that preseason. That's what it means to me. Preseason, get in there, get in the rhythm with your offensive line. Preseason.
Yeah, and you may not see a whole lot of Dak in the preseason early on. How about Dak Prescott? He's the topic here. What do you think, Nate?
Keep him fresh. Keep him going. He's sprinting down the field. Keep him fresh.
I think he's determined. Dak is determined right now. He's locked in. You see him, whether it's a handoff or a pass, he's finishing 40, 50 yards down the field, trying to make sure that hammy is in the back of his mind.
All right, one more here for you. How about special teams? What's the special teams, Isaiah?
They're a weapon. They are a weapon. You have opportunity to have an all-pro kicker and an all-pro punter. Both of these guys have been that in not necessarily the same year, but I think this might be the first time they do it between Anger and Aubrey.
I had a question mark because I need to see the preseason because we got those kickers and we got the returner. But who's going to be blocking and who's going to be tackling? We need to know that.
Ooh, I like that. Little in-depth answer on the one-word analysis from Nate, answering a question with a question because we have a question about who's outside of that special teams
It actually
unit.
might be a sweep. I didn't even mention Turpin, so Turpin might be the special teamer, Aubrey, and Anger. I think you can have a clean sweep. There's an opportunity for that.
It's a great job for Nate Sorensen in his first year as special teams coordinator. Can't wait to see how they fare as the preseason rolls on. For Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, everybody else involved in our Cowboys programming, I'm Kyle Youmans saying so long from Special Edition on the West Coast in Oxnard, California. We'll see you next week as the preseason rolls on.